Happy Tuesday, everybody. I have another dupe for you, and this one is from Anthropologie. Hope you like it. These are the supplies you're going to need, and throughout the video, if there's anything that I think you can use in place of, then I will let you know as I go along. First thing you're going to need to do is connect the three pieces together, the three wood pieces together. These are from a different DIY that I used, so I had to fill in some of the holes that I made in it already. But you're going to have to put two holes on either end, as you can see on the right hand side there, and then on the other end. You just glue them together with some wood glue, a little bit of hot glue, and that stays just fine. You put those together, and then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to measure out the bottles. You're going to need some little small jars, and I will put the link for the bottles that I used in the description box. I've had these for a while. I used them in our wedding / baby shower. And I don't know, I got a box of them at Michael's. They were on clearance, or 2 boxes of them, but I did find them on Amazon, so I'll make sure to put the link. Next, you're going to have to take these beads, and the small ones that are at Dollar Tree, or rather the biggest ones in the bag of the colorful ones, are the same size as the beads that I use, so you can use those. You're going to take the smaller rings that you can find in the office supply or school supply section. They're binder rings. You take the middle one, the middle size. There's a large ones in the middle, and then the smaller ones. You're going to take like the medium sized ones, and you're going to stick the beads inside. You're going to put them in the rings, as you can see there. Then with the bigger ones, what you're going to have to do is, I was going to use dowel rods, but they were too heavy. So for the dowel rod, you're just going to cut a piece that's about 2.5 inches, and you're going to make holes on either end, like I said before, and you're going to stick that are big enough for the dowel rod to fit in there. And then right now what I'm doing is I'm taking my tool and I'm making the hole bigger, because the one that I had in there wasn't big enough. So I took my Dremel tool and just kind of opened it up a little bit more, but you can use your screwdriver, your screwdriver with a bit. And so now I was just measuring to make sure they were long enough. Put some glue in the little holes, make sure that your dowel rods stick in there. And then, like I said, I was going to use dowel rods in between the jars, but they were just too heavy, so I ended up switching over to using skewers, because they were lighter, kind of easier to work with, and they worked a lot better than the dowel rods did. So what I'm doing now is I'm taking the little label that said Mr. and Mrs. on there, took those off. Later in the video, you're going to see that I remove the beads from inside, and I took the tops and stuff off of it too. They came out fairly quickly, but you'll see that a little bit later on. So I was just putting these in here to kind of measure out, where the rings were going to go, and just make sure that everything fit the right way. I had another video kind of showing some other stuff, like me cutting the dowels and everything, and then I realized you didn't need to see that, so I did cut that out. But like I said, right now I'm just kind of measuring where the rings are going to go. Sometimes I realize after I start doing something it makes sense to do it a different way, which is what just happened. And when you put the rings on there, make sure that you put the part that like the clasp of the ring on the, how do I explain this? Like on the outside, so that when you connect them, that's where you're connecting them. So it's kind of thicker and it's not in the front. You can't see the little, the little bending thing. So what I'm doing now is I'm adding the smaller ring to the dowel rod. I'm just gluing it on there. Just a little dab of hot glue, and it stayed on perfectly. And like I said, what I was trying to do was keep it so that you couldn't really see the clasp of the rings. So this is when I decided to use the skewers instead of the dowel rods, because it was just made more sense. So I'm measuring them out on my wood pieces. 1 inch was what I went with, and I had to adjust a couple of them. Some of them were too short, some of them were too long. So you just, depending on how many bottles you're going to use, how big your wood piece is. So I just kind of gave you the measurements I use, but obviously, you're going to have to adjust it to fit yours. So now, like I said, I'm just measuring the little skewer pieces, and what I'm going to do with these is they're going to hang, kind of. It's going to look like they're hanging, but I'm going to end up having to put some skewers underneath it to kind of keep them up because the rings are pretty heavy for, just to hang there. So let's see. So I'm just measuring it out, and then all I'm going to do is hot glue them. Now, if you want this to be more permanent, if you're going to be moving it around, obviously use some E6000 or some crazy glue or super glue or whatever you have or whatever you use. But I use the Gorilla Glue hot glue sticks, and I love them. They hold really well. I've never had an issue with them. But again, sometimes with metal, you might need, something stronger. I have mine up right now, and it's still holding up, so I have no complaints as far as how the Gorilla Glue holds up. So this would be a really cute, like, Mother's Day gift for somebody, or just on your dining room table as a table setting. I mean, not a table setting, but like a centerpiece or whatever. And you can put whatever color flowers you want in there. If you want to put some beads in there, whatever you want to use, whatever you want to do, that would all work. So here, like I said, I'm just putting the skewers, and if you can tell in the video, I'm gluing it on the little clasp. So that's where I'm putting it, so it's not in the front and you can't see it from the front. It kind of blends in with the glue and whatever. So yeah, that's what I'm doing here. And like I said, they glue really well, and they didn't fall out or anything, and I still have it sitting up, and none of my glue pieces came off. But again, if you want it to be more secure, especially if you're giving it as a gift, I would highly recommend using something stronger to keep it up. And but that's personal preference. I mean, these hot glue guns and the strings are so annoying. They're always everywhere. I have them stuck to my clothes and everything. So let's see. If you don't have these rings, you could use shower curtain rings. It'll be a little bit thicker, and it may not, work as well, but if it's what you have, or you could use like the floral wire and make them into circles. As far as the jars are concerned, you could use baby jars, you could use any kind of small jar that would fit in the ring. I used, like I said, I used these because I had a bunch of them and I didn't know what else to do with them. And then I saw this picture on the Anthropologie website, and I was like, I have those little jars. So I figured it would be, good time to use them. And I also had these little small formula jars, like the jars that they give you when you leave the hospital with the baby. Those were kind of the perfect size. They were about comparable as far as height with these jars and size. So if you have anything like that, that would work. Baby food jars, anything like that would work and would just, look just as cute. As far as like the wood piece on the bottom, Jenga blocks or the tumbling tower blocks, you could kind of arrange them somehow to make the board. If you don't have any other blocks, you could use foam board and just put a couple layers, glue them together, paint them, and you'd be set. Cardboard, just put a couple layers of it. Let's see, what else could you use? Anything thick, like I said. Then if you have a piece of wood, I just meant mine. This piece came out to 17 and a half long, and it fit the jars perfectly. So, that's just that. I was just trying to give you some options. And I can't think of anything else that you'd be able to use, but anything you have at home, just make it work. It doesn't even have to be this big. If you have 2 jars that you want to use, the little milk jars, if that works, find a piece of wood. If you only have one of these little game pieces or whatever, then just make it work for you and make it fit. So let's see, what am I doing right now? Right now I'm measuring I guess one of the little skewer sticks was still too long, so I had to cut that little piece off so that it would fit on there. And let's see. These voiceovers are still a little bit awkward for me because I feel like it's so much empty space. And I've already fast forwarded the video, so it's kind of like twiddling my thumbs waiting for the next thing to happen. So now I'm just looking for something to kind of put underneath to hold it up after I glue it so it doesn't just fall down. And I just grabbed random scraps that I had sitting around. So now I just took some hot glue, put it on the end bead or the dowel rod to hold the rings up. So you just glue the skewer onto the dowel rod and you just keep doing that. Well, you do that to that side and then you do it to the other side. And like I said, I just took a bunch of scrap pieces that I had to kind of hold up the rings so that they wouldn't pull the glue off until it dried. And let's see here. So then after I glued those two pieces together on the ends, I did take some skewers and I cut them the length or the height of the rings so that I can put them on each little skewer stick to hold them up permanently. So like I said, it looks like it's hanging there, but really it's not because the little skewers are kind of holding it up. But I had to do something because I thought it was going to be too heavy. See, yeah, I pulled that piece off and it was just too heavy and it was pulling too much. So that's when I decided to get the little skewers and put them in there. So putting the bottles in just to make sure that everything's kind of even and matches up right. And I kind of noticed that they were hanging a little bit too much. So this is my skewer part right here. Measured it out just to see how high I wanted it and just cut them up. And I think what I decided to do was measure it up with the two end pieces so that it was all the same height, which is kind of duh. Of course, that's what you're going to do. But again, if you only do two, you may not need that. But I had 5 and it was just it was drooping in the middle. So that's when I decided to do that. And that held up perfectly, and they're still in there now, even after I painted it, and I've moved it around a couple times, and, you know, kids kind of messing with it. Oh, this is cute, Mom, look, and moving it around and stuff, and it's held up perfectly just with the hot glue. But again, if you're going to give it as a gift or, you know, you want this to be kind of a long-term piece, I would definitely use some other type of glue. But again, that's totally up to you. Some people don't like the smell of E6000. They don't like, you know, super glue or whatever. But it's totally optional. So I let those dry and then let's see what I did here. So yeah, I think I decided to put it on all of them because it was just drooping too much. So we cut all the little skewers up, made sure I put those in. Then after this, I'm going to stain it. I'm going to use the Waverly wax. And I guess it's antique wax. You can paint it to match your decor. You can, you know, stain it. You can, well, if you have a solid piece of wood, you can leave it natural if that works for you. But I didn't paint the metal rings. I just painted like the wood pieces, and that includes the little skewers, the dowel rod at the end. I did all of that. So I just cleaned up my plate, my little area there, and I started putting that wax on there. And like I said, you can stain it if you want to. I didn't stain the wood first because the stain, sometimes when you're gluing, it doesn't stick well. So I don't like painting it first because then, like, if I'm adding extra glue, it just doesn't stick right. So I choose to, if I'm going to use this wax, I always do it, you know, beforehand. I mean, after, not before. Sorry. Yeah, so I just waxed it all up and made sure it was the color that I wanted. And I'm trying not to have to show you the whole thing because, I mean, obviously I'm going to wax it, so you're going to see the end result. But this is the process of painting it. And like I said, this would be a great, you know, gift, or, you know, just if you want to make it for yourself. So I think this is almost it. I'm going to go ahead and jump forward so you don't have to see all that. Just finishing it up there. and let it dry. Then you go ahead and you add the jars on there, and then you'll see the end result here in just a minute. All right, and there's jars. I shook them up because they were looking kind of funky. And this is when I show you how to take the lid just comes right off. I thought it was going to be difficult, and it just popped right off. So there you go. And add whatever flowers you want, and that's it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you're still with me, please just go ahead and subscribe, like this video, share it, and I really appreciate everybody that has joined me. If I can get to 100 subscribers, I'm going to do a mini little giveaway, but you know, it's kind of hard to get all these subscribers, and so please help me share, like, subscribe, and hope everybody enjoys the rest of their day. And until next time, be the reason someone smiles.